Right. Well, let's move on to the other event. It was a drug related coming from CDER. This was another diabetes drug that was rejected. This was branded as Bydureon or long-acting Byetta. It was a surprise to a lot of people. The FDA mentioned that they did insufficient QT prolongation studies in humans. So if you could introduce yourself, Dr. Schuyler, and maybe discuss what happened there.
Sure. I'm Jay Schuyler. I'm a professor at the Diabetes Research Institute and in the Division of Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism here at Miller School of Medicine. I also, for purposes of disclosure, should point out I'm on the board of directors of Amylin Pharmaceuticals, who manufacture this drug. And my comments today are speaking as a faculty member of UM, and I don't at all speak for the company. Mm-hmm. So Bydureon is an interesting drug. There have been 3 papers, all of which appeared in Lancet, which looked at Bydureon and its impact in diabetes in large trials. One of them compared Bydureon to the short-acting version Byetta that you mentioned. A second one compared it to insulin glargine. And a third compared it to both sitagliptin and pioglitazone, which are Januvia and Actos. In all 3 trials, Bydureon had the greatest degree of glucose lowering reflected by hemoglobin A1C, as well as weight loss associated with it, whereas with insulin glargine and with pioglitazone, there was weight gain. With sitagliptin, it was weight neutral. So this has been a drug which has been widely anticipated in the diabetes community and that everybody's been waiting for. It's a once-a-week formulation, which gets around many of the compliance problems that people see with other medications that they need to take even by mouth or by injection every day, given the profound effects that it has. And so it was somewhat of a surprise that the agency came back with a complete response letter. There had been an earlier complete response letter in March when the PDUFA date came up, and at that time the complete response letter indicated that there needed to be further negotiations on the label and on the REMS or mitigation approach that would be used for potential adverse issues. And there was a manufacturing plant issue which had subsequently been resolved and was no longer a problem. So everyone anticipated that in this rescheduled PDUFA date, in response to the submission to the complete response letter, that this would be approved. Widely anticipated, and actually even your friends on Wall Street who were bears, their concern was it might not reach the market potential the bulls went, not that it would not be approved. There was no one expecting that this would be delayed yet again. And the interesting thing is that even though it was a so-called complete response in March, which is supposed to be everything the FDA wants, this time they came out with 2 new issues which were not mentioned in March, namely more data for looking at QT interval, and secondly, wanting to see another study that's been done using the commercial formulation, which was similar to the first one when they compared it to Byetta. At that time, that study was done early enough that it used a research formulation rather than the commercial formulation. Those data are available, and that's very easy. The issue about QT is puzzling to me. I've had a chance to look at the QT data that were submitted with regards to Byetta, which is also exenatide, the short formulation, and there was not a signal within what is generally expected. Although if you drew a regression line through the data, it was not flat. It was a little bit up, suggesting conceivably, although not statistically significant and not supported by other analyses, that there might have been an increased QT at very high doses. And so what the agency specifically asked for on this occasion was to take people who would achieve doses that would be seen in patients with severe renal failure and do QT studies on them. Because the QT data that had been submitted was from 168 individuals, 58 of whom had mild renal insufficiency and 10 moderate renal insufficiency, but nobody with severe renal insufficiency, and so that was the specific concern that was raised.
Yep. This comes on the heel of the Avandia issues. A lot of the FDA is risk averse.
I think that's the problem here, because this group, which is the metabolism group, just went through the Avandia issues.
Yep.
And I personally, my own bias is that they're scarred from that.
Yeah.
And
Any
they
other thoughts?
they just have, you know, they really are, you know, trying to feel their way now. What do they do?
Jay brings up a fundamental problem with kind of both device and drug approval in the United States. What the agency should be concerned about is the safety of a new product. And the problem with the trial design is that all of these designs are powered to assess efficacy. So the hemoglobin A1C is at this level and drops to this level. It's very easy to power a study and to get the statistical design. The part that's hard is the safety issue. Now, both Bob and Jay bring up a really important point. What do you do with renal insufficiency? Both of these drugs that are, one got approved, one didn't. No one knows at that very high end what happens with drugs that are either renally metabolized or metabolized by liver. What happens when those end organs start to fail?
But the interesting thing is, in this case, Bydureon, which is the twice daily one, has a warning on the label not to use it in severe renal insufficiency. So this drug would be contraindicated in that circumstance, although not for any reason that's evident.
But even taking that apart, the safety events are very rare events, less than 1%, and you need tens of thousands of patients to show a difference. So that's part of the problem. But then when the drug gets used, the pharmaceutical company expects it's going to be used in tens and hundreds of thousands of patients.
Well, but this drug has been on the market for 5 years in its twice daily form. Over 1 million people have been exposed, and there's no evidence of any of this. In fact, all the evidence suggests that it decreases cardiac risk.
Yeah.
Something I think we could talk about in a whole separate 30-minute discussion is the fact that a couple of years ago in 2008, the FDA set new guidelines for developing diabetes drugs, whereas just a surrogate marker like hemoglobin is not adequate, and you also have to show cardioprotective and other higher hurdles. And is that going to scare away drug developers from even entering this field? That's what a lot of the industry journals are saying, that they're just exiting. They're not even trying anymore because they see examples like this. But we can.
But this doesn't fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a separate issue. Okay. I mean, with this drug, actually, a large 9,000 patient cardiovascular study looking at endpoints is already underway. That's being coordinated by Rob Califf at Duke and Rory Holman at Oxford. So they're actually doing the endpoint study that fits the new guidelines.
When will that be ready, do you think?
It's still enrolling, and you got to give time to achieve endpoints. But that's a post-approval requirement for this, because the pre-approval suggested diminished events, not increased events. So you know that isn't the issue here. This is the unique issue of QT being raised, and it was brought up by the Canadian regulatory authorities, who said, you know, when looking at the short acting, we want all drugs to have QT things done in minute detail, and sort of raise the flag. And the agency, in its current paralysis form post Avandia, doesn't quite know how to deal with it, so they throw it back to the company.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the